That was sick. That was sick. That's our new intro music. Kind of a different feel. Yeah, I feel like we should be smoking a blunt rather than jumping around in a mosh pit. Japanese people. Thank you, Adam Brubaker, for giving us that copyright-free music to use on YouTube. Also, you can find good old Adam on MMAshare.com as Walter Sobchak. He's been MIA lately, but when he comes back, be sure to give him hugs and kisses on behalf of the Getting Lucky MMA podcast, which is what you are listening to. I'm your host, Lucky Robert Curtis, as you can hear giggling in the background like a schoolgirl, Mitchell Stuckey.
That's what I do. I do it too much.
Hello.
Hello.
We do not have an event to talk about, but before you just click off the podcast and say fuck you, we actually have some things we do want to talk about. And we take these sort of breaks in the UFC schedule to talk about random shit. And sometimes that random shit is even more interesting than the fights. Case of the prelims of Fuel TV 8.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun talking about that boring shit.
Yes, that was boring shit. Good thing Dong Lung Kim was there. Otherwise, what would I have nothing to do. As we normally do with our little cage chats, we like to talk about some just breaking news, matchups that have been announced, and bounce some stuff off each other. I think the biggest news coming out of the last week was that Rashad Evans has been signed to fight Dan Henderson. It's almost like you guys put on two really boring fights and lost, so now we're going to punish you by making you fight each other.
Do you blame Dan Henderson for that? The boring fight?
No, because if you remember, I said Dan Henderson is a terrible matchup for Lyoto. That's really more of a matchmaking
right
snafu.
Yeah, I mean, I think that this might bring out Rashad Evans' actual exciting fighting style maybe for once. Who knows? I'm actually hoping he just gets killed by Dan Henderson, but I'm glad they announced it.
I am too. But I do think Rashad's heart is no longer in fighting.
No, he's decidedly different. He doesn't have the same swagger that he did. He's just a different fighter altogether, and he doesn't look right in the cage.
And he talks about it a little bit when he does commentary. Like when he did that panel with Jay Glazer on some sort of MMA forum type thing, he was talking about how fighters have to prepare for a life after the cage, and the way he said it was in present tense to himself, as if his life after the cage had already started.
So he's already thinking about it.
A Freudian slip?
Oh, this is a bummer. Well, the light heavyweight division really is being cleaned out at the moment, and he could potentially drop down, but would it really make a difference? Do you think?
I think he should.
Do you think losing him from the division would be a big deal?
Before the Little Nog fight, I would have said definitely, because I thought between him and Lyoto, they're the only guys that have actually challenged Jones. And Lyoto was finished. So I thought Rashad was clearly the number 2 light heavy on the planet, particularly based off of what he did to Tito and what he did to Phil Davis. But after seeing him hand jive his way through the most excruciating fight with Little Nog, now I'm thinking, no, he's not that exciting to watch. No, he's not important in the division anymore.
Hand driving. I like that.
Thank you. I feel like we're in Grease Lightning. Soa the Hulk versus Stipe Miocic. 2 heavyweights. Yeah. I think that's 161.
Yep.
The word is, over here in Australia, because there's a lot of folks over here that know Stipe, is that Soa, and he's also Kiwi, Aussie, he's in this area. Soa has no cardio whatsoever, and so it'll just be like a round 2 knockout.
I was gonna say I've got very limited knowledge of Soa. I mean, I know he has been on quite a streak, and he beat Bob Sapp of all people. But
dude, I'm writing that down. So, do you know the date on that?
I don't understand. Like, I guess he's quite a guy.
He's got the coolest Twitter design. It's basically like a bunch of Kiwi Incredible Hulks with tribal tattoos. It's pretty badass. That alone make me like Soa.
So not
Palele.
jealous. Well, he's got quite a following. Stipe is very well-rounded, though. How vast is your knowledge on Soa?
Hardly any, other than he's an Incredible Hulk fan, and well, that's enough for me.
And he does
favorite superhero.
He's shaped kind of weird, so he does look like he's got psycho upper body strength.
There's just something about these sort of Polynesian, Islander, Kiwi, Maori guys like Mark Hunt, David Tua, James Tahuna. You know what I mean? Maybe Soa, we can get him to come out and do like, another dance number when he comes out to the... Maybe that's a Kiwi thing. Just like Tahuna did to Men in Black. Next fight, Spider versus Weidman has been officially confirmed for UFC 162. Weidman is convinced that he will do something to Silva other than absorb a jab to his chin and take a nap. Do you think this has any relevance in this fight?
Do I think what has any relevance?
This fight. Do you think it has any relevance?
No. I think it's just a blip on Spider's career. Anderson's going to just... I don't know. He does have a little bit of trouble with wrestlers, but he's not going to have any trouble with Weidman. Weidman's going to be like, wow, I did not know a jab could feel like a right hook from Mark Hunt. You know what I mean? Like, there's something about Anderson's hits. They don't look like anything, but they apparently are devastating. I kind of want to be hit by Anderson Silva, just to know. Well,
I have all right. So I've never been hit by a professional fighter, so I'd have no basis of comparison. And they also say that when you get knocked out, you don't remember getting hit anyway. So I'll pass on being hit by Silva. I would like to see him in person flurry like on a bag, safely away 5 or 6 feet.
I just want to be hit, but I want to know it's coming. You know what I mean? Because all the hits that he really just destroys somebody with, they don't even think it's coming. So I want to see how much it really does hurt. I'm not going to ask him to hit me in the jaw in person, but it's just interesting the way Forrest Griffin just disintegrated. I gotta know.
Well, here's some rumor about that fight: is that Forrest had been knocked out like a week before in training, and so he was, like once you're really susceptible. So that's maybe what happened. But again, did Yushin Okami get knocked out in training? Because he went down pretty quick. I will say this is a cool story that I think Dana White told on the Joe Rogan podcast. He flew back from wherever they were, I think it was in Brazil, when Stephan Bonner fought Silva, and they were on the same plane together, and he said Bonner was totally freaked out because he said Anderson Silva treated me like I'd never fought before, like just staying there on the cage and saying, come on. And Silva was completely freaked out, like he'd never seen that before. He'd never been handled like that before. If anyone beats Silva, it's going to be old age. If Weidman happens to beat Silva, it's because Silva is 37, 38 years old, not because Weidman is the chosen one, as he thinks he is. He hasn't fought since July either.
Right, at this point he's got an excuse. If he were to lose, he's got, and it's a legitimate excuse. So I guess, for lack of a better word.
Well, if he would stop, I mean, part of it, yes, I think he did have some injuries, but the other part of it was, I didn't want my title shot. That's not fair. You don't see Johnny Hendricks sitting over on the sideline crying his eyes out.
Somebody's a Johnny Hendricks fanboy. I don't know who that is.
If you go to the same college, if you grew up in the same state, a small state, a state that is a total population less than, let's say, San Francisco's population, and I've met the guy, that's not being a fanboy. That's being a soldier. Ride or die.
You're talking about being from a small state. I'm from Delaware.
Is that even? I thought that was a county.
Exactly.
Isn't it like a county in New England, the state? All right, so Rico Rodriguez got pulled over for a DUI. And I was really surprised, said no one.
No, I was just surprised that he was still alive.
Want some more ground-shattering, obvious news? Mark Coleman retires.
Like 8 years too late.
Didn't he retire after the second Fedor fight? And then, interestingly enough, they're taking the Tough Smashes winner, Robert Whittaker, and matching him up against the Tough 16 winner, Colton Smith. Karate striker versus wrestler. My prediction is wrestling.
It's always wrestling.
Yeah, this is the worst matchup they could do for Whittaker because he's Aussie. He's a Kiwi and Aussie, just like Soa, and they can't wrestle. And Colton is like, that's all he does is wrestling.
In a sport of mixed martial arts, why are wrestlers the ones that don't seem to mix their martial arts? I guess because they don't have to.
Amazingly enough, we're going to talk about this.
Oh,
later
no!
On in the show, we'll get to that. We'll get back to that. Let's go to the next segment.
Whoa! One other announcement happened today, which I think is fairly interesting. Thiago, the Animal Piss Silva, is fighting Fei Zhao at UFC 162 along with the Anderson Silva Weidman fight. I'm just shocked that apparently Matthew Riddle can get kicked out of the UFC for marijuana twice, and Thiago can just do as much steroids as he wants and continue to get big fights.
Hey. Don't talk about Thiago Silva.
I like Thiago Silva.
I do too. So we don't make fun of Thiago Silva's injury woes that he uses steroids to help him overcome, or marijuana, whatever.
Did you meet him inside of a small car, backseat? Like what? Why do you like him?
He defiled me in an uncomfortable place, and I mean the back of a Volkswagen. That fight's in Nevada. I don't see Thiago Silva winning, but I like him. I liked him back before he went through all this trouble. He was great until he lost to Lyoto, and then he's just never been the same.
If he loses, which I agree, I think he will. Do you think he's done in the UFC?
Yeah, I think there are going to be a lot of high-name guys that get their walking papers, and I think one of those guys that is on the brink is Alistair Overeem.
Ooh, he does come with a heavy price tag.
Yes, indeed. I think if he loses... But here's the tough thing about heavyweights. They need him badly.
Yep.
I think if Alistair loses once more, you'll start to hear that conversation just like people were saying about Faber, but it'll be 10 times worse.
The UFC needs heavyweights so badly, they just signed Soa Palele.
Yeah, they need heavyweights more than Kim Winslow needs meth.
Oh my God, here she is.
Yeah, there she is. I figured you did the McCorkle meme in our last show. I gotta do. Kim has been getting off a little easy. Ooh!
Oh, since your song, I bet she is.
Yeah, a song that I cannot play with advertisements because that folksy karaoke yodel apparently YouTube thinks is copyright infringement, even though it's me on there singing to a karaoke song. Whatever, I'm not bitter. Enjoy our new intro song. Any other announcements before we move on to Cage Fixers?
That's all I've got.
All right, I am super, super excited about this and this idea that I've got. Now, in other sports, first off, let me set up the piece. Cage Fixers, this is where Mitchell and I come down from our ivory tower, descend from Mount Olympus, to deal with the mortals and fix all of the little problems. Like, for instance, cruiserweight.
That was a gem.
That was a gem. Or really figuring out what to call a super fight and what to just call a nice fight. So that's what Cage Fixers is. Now here is my idea. Other sports have a level of participation. For instance, the wave. People, it comes back around. This goes another step further. In soccer, when one team is holding the ball and they pass several times, and we're talking like 10, 15, 20 times, by like the 10th pass, consecutive pass, and they're basically playing keep away, the crowd will start to yell, "Olé!" every time they pass. So by the time you're getting to like the 20th pass, people are freaking out, "Olé!" because it's a high level of skill to just keep the ball from the other team like that, particularly if you're in their offensive third. Another thing, in college baseball, a lot of times the fans will start to call out all the little ticks of the opposing batter. So if he grabs his crotch, they'll go, "Crotch grab!" And he tucks his helmet, to try to get into his head. So they'll call out a little cadence of all the little things he's doing as he gets prepared to swing. The UFC, mixed martial arts fans, need to do these types of things when they watch the event. I'm telling you that in grappling matches, in grind matches, if there's something to look forward to and do together at like a communal experience, it'll make every match more exciting. For instance, let's say a guy throws a flying knee, and the whole crowd goes, yabba dabba doo! Can you imagine the highlight of that? Like the guy flying, the whole crowd. Or he tries a spinning back fist and misses. The crowd goes, wah, wah, wah.
I think
that's for you, Chael Sonnen.
They've got knees. I really like that. That's developed across countries. Knees. They also have something else in common. Fans at the shows do. They drink heavily, and they bring people along with them who've literally never heard of MMA. They don't even know it's called MMA. They bring those people to the shows.
They just know that there's a high chance of date rape.
From all of the alcohol intake.
Yes. So here's another idea.
All right.
So in the basketball games in the NBA, they have a camera that they put on the crowd and they make them kiss. It's called the kiss cam.
Mm-hmm.
Well, in the UFC, rather than kiss cam, fist cam.
Ooh.
You put it on two guys, and whoever notices the camera first is must smack his buddy across the face.
Now,
I could watch that for hours.
You're only talking about fan participation at the show. Are they televising this? Because they don't generally televise the kiss cam. They don't televise it. They put it on the big screen for the people at the show.
Well, I mean, if we've got say Colton Smith grinding out 5 minutes of straight top control with just trading sweat, they could show the fist cam to the international audience.
I would. They could show anything else other than that happening, and I would be happy. They could no, they can't show a Kim Winslow striptease, but anything, I guess, aside from that would make me happy.
Did you just say Kim Winslow striptease?
I know. I'm actually going to just burn my tongue off at the end of this.
I just have a feeling when she takes off her shirt, she would look like what you would imagine like Skeletor looks like.
Like a Medusa type?
Thinking like boobs that are just hanging off of like an emaciated rib cage filled with puncture marks and burns.
She just has weird powders coming out of all her puncture marks.
All right, I'm going to opt out of this little sidetrack we've gotten into. So fan participation.
Thank you for getting out of that.
Yeah, we'll just pretend that never happened. Fan participation. I'd love to hear, like, for instance, if people are sitting there grinding a la Stun Gun or Demi and Maya on the ground, maybe people start doing snoring noises, or maybe they start singing a lullaby, or maybe you start making cricket noises. I think there's an opportunity here to take MMA to the next level. In fact, I would dare say, fix it. What's your idea?
Oh, I just want to tag on to that, because now that you've got the wheels turning in my head on this idea, I think
I've opened Pandora's box of awesome.
You have. I have a little creative. I'm creative too, guys. I think anytime a nut shot happens, somebody should make fun of Rogan in a way by just screaming "Tie Cup."
Tie Cup, yes, the whole audience, Tie Cup!
Right. If the crowd got into... Or maybe they all bring tie cups with them and throw them into the cage.
Or bang them together over their heads.
There you go.
Like a Tusken Raider. Is it Tusken? Whatever. The sand people from Star Wars. I'm sure it's not Tusken.
I don't watch Star Wars. I'm a real man.
Yep. You damn kids. You just don't appreciate fine art. All right, so what's your idea?
All right, well, I guess mine kind of ties into yours a little bit to fix
Does it
MMA.
tie into mine Tie Cup?
No, it does not. And
that was pretty weak. I apologize. That was lame. I'm sorry. I'll try better.
And the show just tanked. Deleted
No. The show tanked at the Kim Winslow striptease. Let's be clear.
That's right. All right, so yours was fan participation by letting them be wacky.
Yabba dabba doo!
I think, actually, I would go the other way in terms of the fans. My idea is also with the fans. I think, like any big sports, any big sport, the fans are super serious about it. Very over-analyzing and overbearing and very hypercritical. So,
like us, for instance?
Well, yeah, but to a different extent. Like, if you're going to say, Anderson Silva has destroyed everybody in his path, but they've all
the division is weak.
Right. Or Fedor, look at who he beat. Like, yes, look at who he beat. You know what I mean? So I think if and just on another level, understanding what's going on in the cage, I'd like to see fans educate themselves even more than they have already, and to be less hypercritical. There's a time to be critical. When you have a Yushin Okami in the cage, hypercritical. Go ahead and when Japan is booing a Japanese fighter, so
yeah.
I just think I'd like to see fans be a little bit less critical and enjoy the sport a little bit more. If you're enjoying the sport from being so overly critical that you really can't get any enjoyment out of it, that's you. I don't enjoy that.
So instead, I think I have two ideas. I think one, to make fans enjoy it more. I think the fans in the arena typically enjoy themselves a lot more than the people watching at home. And that's probably because of the alcohol consumption.
Right. Have you ever noticed how many people cage side aren't even looking at the cage?
Well, because they're so rich. I mean, it's just like any other. They show up for their box suite and then text, "Hey, I'm in a box suite."
Right. Disgusting.
So I think instead of serving beer, I think they should serve mead.
Ooh.
And I think they should have minstrels walking through the aisle with bar winches, with massive, those massive breasts with the little bodice laced up with the corsets.
Do I ever?
Do I ever? Oktoberfest every day. The minstrels play their songs, and they hand out mead. How can you not have a jolly gay time drinking mead? And to get this underway, we'll get English Tom on it pronto.
I think now you've just given me another idea.
And I still have a second point, but go with your
I'm sorry.
addendum.
With what the scenario you just presented, instead of fighting in like a casino in a cage, maybe they just rent out at medieval times and they put the cage in the middle there, and then you've got all the mead, you've got
fuck the cage. Let them fight on that grass hay stuff that the horse, and then they can fight like there, and then they can have weapons on the side and they can go and get like Mad Max Thunderdome.
Then a wrestler wouldn't be so boring because they can smear their opponent's face in horse crap.
And to tie it back to fan participation, as soon as they get the weapon, the whole audience can go, brrrah, brrrah. That's from Star Trek for you young folks when Spock and Captain Kirk fought.
Or more fan participation from the cable guy. They could have two fans from the crowd there at medieval times come down and fight.
Come back so that I might brain thee.
Can
you imagine watching MMA fighting, eating like a 6-pound leg of turkey?
I can imagine doing anything eating a 6-foot.
That makes me think of like Conan the Barbarian. Conan, what is best in life? Crush your enemies, eat a leg ham, and see the lamentation of their women.
I assume you still know your second point?
I do. This is a serious point, although, let's be honest, mead, that's legit. I think one of the things that they can do to sort of encourage people to get more educated on MMA is to have live stats like they would at like an NBA game or a football game. Like they have down and distance and things like that on the NFL. At NBA games, they actually have everyone that's on the floor, rebounds, assists, points, that kind of thing. If they had that sort of a readout, some sort of scoreboard, LED board or something, with takedowns, significant strikes, passes, sub-attempts, all the little sort of nuanced grappling stats that are easily to throw up, then the average fan would look at that and they might start asking questions. Okay, what's a pass? Why is that a good thing?
That's a fantastic idea. Yeah, that's a great idea. And not only that, I think, how quick is Fight Metric? How quick do they have those stats out?
I think the earliest I've seen it is like several hours after the event. Those judges need those stats during the. That's another thing. Those judges need those stats during the round. When you
watch a Strikeforce, now that defunct, but when you watched Strikeforce, they had the stats right after. Like they talked about it right after they were done the post-fight interview. Maybe they could get the Fight Metrics stats right up there right away between rounds.
Well, no, because during the fight, a lot of times they'll bring up like so-and-so has thrown 46 significant strikes in this fight. So the UFC's tracking them in real time.
Okay.
They just have to just broadcast it to everyone else.
That would be awesome. That would be a very great idea. I think another cool thing I saw with fan participation from Bellator has an app where you can, and in real time on the app, you can put your score in for the round you just saw, and they'll bring it up on the screen like fans voted this many fans voted this round to be 10-9, whoever, you know. So
yeah.
I think that's really cool. That would get people into I don't know. It gives them a reason to watch, and that's something that you give people at home. You know what I mean? Not just people in the crowd. I hope to see that in the UFC. I guess that's probably trademarked or something at this point, but
no, they can't trademark that.
No.
No. Because I mean, American Idol has been doing that for 12 years. You know,
that's true.
Send in your vote via text.
Yeah, but it's an app. Like I haven't seen how it's not just a text. I haven't seen how it works.
Oh, well, the UFC, they can't use their app. The UFC can develop their own app, and based off of previous history, it'll be 100 times better. All right, so that is our way to fix MMA. I feel like we really crushed it. Maybe we should end the podcast right here.
Boom! Throw the pen down, walk away.
That's right. That's how I roll, bitches. But we did talk about Kim Winslow, so no one's listening at this point anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Let's continue. I think I've been watching, and I think starting in 2012 and going into 2013, I think that there is a shift in the UFC. I think there is a shift in mixed martial arts. When it started, BJJ was supreme. Hoist was submitting everybody, even shoot fighters like Kim Shamrock. But then everyone started to get acclimated to submission defense. It's easier to defend than it is to execute. And a new prototype of ideal fighter came on board, and that started with, he just retired,
Mark
Coleman. That's correct. And then you had guys take it to the next level, guys like Matt Hughes, and so on and so forth. Wrestling has been dominant as a discipline in mixed martial arts for 15 years easily. But, and this is what you brought up, why don't wrestlers have to learn other disciplines? Well, it's because their grounding and holding people down has been so dominant in terms of scoring that they've never had to. But I think that there is now a shift away from wrestling for the first time. And I think you could say that the prototype of this was a Chuck Liddell. But he was unique in that he could strike and he had great takedown defense. Mm-hmm. But now look at all the guys that have that same array of skills, because Chuck was the innovator of how to counter wrestling. And now everyone, it seems like a lot of people have it. So for instance, let's just take a look at our champions, or recent champions, and see how many of them are actually wrestlers. So Kane is a wrestler, although he does not wrestle. So you could say the same thing about Chuck Liddell. Chuck Liddell was a wrestler, but he doesn't wrestle. JDS, not a wrestler, could not be taken down. John Jones, wrestler, but he doesn't use it.
Agreed.
He actually uses a lot more like judo throws and Greco. Anderson Silva, not a wrestler. GSP, you could say he's solidly a wrestler.
Right.
Benson Henderson,
wrestler.
He's like GSP, and he's sort of like a hybrid wrestler. You know what I mean? Like he can strike. He's really good at striking, but when he needs to, he can take you down.
He's got sick MMA wrestling.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
That's true. So he's sort of like wrestling dominance 2.0. You know, like that after Matt Hughes generation of wrestlers that could strike. Mm-hmm. Aldo, not a wrestler. Barao, not a wrestler. Who am I missing? Rousey, not a wrestler. Demetrius Johnson,
wrestler.
Wrestler, but I don't know how much he uses it. Like he didn't use it as much against against Mighty Mouse. No, not Mighty Mouse. What's his name? Annoying laughing guy, Dodson.
I think you said recent champions, Frankie Edgar.
Yeah, again, wrestling base, doesn't use it.
Mm-hmm. Doesn't use it because he doesn't have to.
Right, he's a boxer, but he uses it because the whole thing about Frankie Edgar is you can't take him down because he just pops right back up. Mm-hmm. But now when he wants to, he can do it. Like he took down Penn and held him down. But you don't see any guys that are just John Fitching it or doing a Matt Hughes anymore. Now, what makes me even...
Whoa, what?
Like
you mean champions?
No. Like you don't see any champions using a John Fitch technique or a Demian Maia technique. Right.
I was going to say because
stun gun technique or Yushin Okami technique.
Right. Yeah, I don't see champions using. I was going to say I saw Yushin Okami the other night, but yeah, okay.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
For instance, if you go back when Matt Hughes was a champion, you got Brock Lesnar was a champion. I mean, these are hardcore wrestlers. You don't have those champions, and how many of those guys are actually in contention even? You know what I mean? Now, let's take that a step further. The IOC guts wrestling from the Olympics for 2020. And Chael Sonnen had a great point and said, that doesn't kill wrestling in 2020. That kills wrestling in 2016. Because as soon as that 2016 Olympics is over, all the Olympic funding disappears. So wrestling was having a bit of a renaissance because of MMA. But because if MMA develops this counter to wrestling, i.e. the Chuck Liddell, and then the Olympics isn't there, that's a massive, massive setback. Point number 2, the cuts. Guys that are clearly elite level fighters, like a Volkman, and even to a greater extent, John Fitch, 13-2-1 in the UFC?
And you have Matt Riddle, who's also used on a wrestling base.
Yeah. So, using a wrestling base, smoking a little bit of the reefer, but it was the wrestling, I think, that got him out. Because he fights exactly like Fitch does. That is as big a disincentive as there is not fighting in the UFC. Now, the judges were rewarding wrestlers, and that was incentivizing them to wrestle. That was incentivizing them to lay on them. But with the UFC saying, well, you know what, if you wrestle like that and you have one slip up, your ass is gone. I think this is the end of wrestling. That's a long tirade. You go.
You bring up a good point in that the judges were rewarding it, because I think that's a big deal. You're looking at a boss in Dana White, and Dana White, like we talked about before, he either takes all the blame or all the glory. So I'm going to lay this on Dana White, even though I know it goes elsewhere. But Dana White's looking at a problem that isn't going away in wrestling, and judges rewarding wrestling. Dana White's not in charge of the commission. Dana White's not in charge of the judges. He can't fix that. But what he can do is he can keep those fighters from fighting in his organization. Whether that's good or bad, that depends on where you sit. I hate watching wrestling, but at the same I hate it. But at the same time, I hate knowing that a guy that, could beat another guy is in a different organization because of his style. Now, whether you call that winning in a fight or not, like what Yushin Okami does, that's neither here nor there. What it comes down to is at the end of the night, one guy's in his locker room crying, the other guy's celebrating. So even though I hate wrestling, I see what you're saying, I see what Dana's doing, and instead of everybody catching up the way that everybody caught up with BJJ when Hoist brought it in, everybody's trying to catch up with wrestling, but some people's wrestling is on a different level to other fighters, whereas some people's BJJ is not on that elite level compared to other. It's all almost a completely level playing ground, and it's not moving that way for wrestling.
The thing about wrestling is that to be successful at wrestling is much easier than being successful at BJJ, because BJJ is looking to finish the fight with a submission.
Right.
Wrestling is looking to control the position. So getting a takedown is if you're good at wrestling, it's easier to land a takedown than it is for a striker to land a good strike, in my opinion. And
that's why I don't understand why a takedown is scored above 50 significant, overhand rights. A takedown is like that one Diego Sanchez, that fight. Why? For what reason?
Well, just like we showed, it was literally an increment of 13 significant strikes that one takedown made up. And I don't think any rational MMA fan can say that makes any sense.
No, yeah, we showed in the last fight, now that's not on the last card, that takedowns were getting a fighter in 2 takedowns in a round. I think it was Kang, got him 5 total significant strikes in an entire round. If you have dominant position, because a takedown should be dominant position, you should be dominant. I don't agree with. We could talk about judges and wrestling all day, but it is sad that the way that it's got to go is by being forced out from the top and not forced out by everybody catching up in terms of skill.
But I think it's 2 trends happening at the same time. I think people, for instance, Johnny Hendricks, you would think would be a guy that would use his wrestling. He's got the best credentials, short of, you could say who has better, him or Cormier, but I think Hendricks has better credentials, because even though Cormier was a captain of the Olympic team, he didn't medal. I think Hendricks could have competed in the Olympics had he chosen to do so. And on a collegiate level, he was far more successful. But Hendricks does not use his wrestling at all.
I think when you have wrestling like that, you know you don't need to, so you can play the other game.
But that's my point.
Right.
Is it Dana White and other external factors are driving wrestling out, even though wrestling is still extremely effective. But at the same time, within the sport, you've got people that have found the counter to wrestling, have a very good sprawl, have heavy hips, and then have wicked stand-up. And even the wrestlers are going in that vein.
And that's why I talk about fixing MMA with educating the fans, because as a new fan, I hated wrestling. It wasn't big when I first got into MMA, but as it got to be bigger, I wasn't educated on as much. And that was about the time where my brother started to drift away from watching MMA, and now he just says, why would I want to watch that? All they do is lay on each other anymore. And I can't argue with him. I had a huge party at my house for Rampage Rashad, and yeah, and my brother was so pumped up for that fight because he knew both fighters and he wanted to see Rashad die, and Rashad just laid on him. Especially when you're talking crap before the fight, saying I'm going to knock you out, and then all you do is lay on him. So I think what has to happen is the fans need to be educated in terms of wrestling to not hate it as much. I mean, I still hate it to an I hate when it's done in an Okami type way, but when it's so high level, like a Johnny Hendricks way, where it can be your base and you don't have to rely on it, you just know it's there. And I think that's the lack of education, I think, is what's driving wrestling away, because Dana White says, look, the casual fan doesn't want to see that. The casual fan is who I pay the almighty, or who pays my bills. I need to keep the casual fan. The casual fan doesn't care what wrestling really is to this sport.
Right. But I mean, this is what the whole point of this is that the next evolution of MMA is here.
And it is.
I don't think, and then that's that wrestling will no longer dominate.
So you think, I guess the trend is that something will dominate, something has dominated.
I'm telling you, who's dominating are strikers. For the first time in MMA's history, it's strikers. Kane is, by his style of fighting, a striker that cannot be taken down. Same thing with JDS. Silva, he's fought a lot of guys that are good wrestlers. The only one that was able to consistently get him down was Chael, and that's because Silva had a broken rib. Everyone else is too scared to shoot on Silva because of his knees, his elbows, his strikes, and everything. And it goes all the way down. GSP, he can take you down, but when he fights Koscheck, he stands up and destroys him. Same thing with Benson Henderson. That's what I'm saying is the next evolution is guys with heavy hips with a great sprawl that strike. And now strikers for the first time are the elite fighter, which I think is great for the growth of the sport. You know what I mean? Right,
yeah. No, I really enjoy seeing the champions fight, save for Demetrius Johnson, and I guess it's been a while since I've seen GSP, so I can't say anything.
Well, look at the lighter divisions and women's as part of an evolution of MMA. So let's take, for instance, the middleweights and light heavyweights, which were basically this. Everyone back in the day were basically middleweights and light heavyweights, with the occasional heavyweight like a Dan Severn, that kind of guy. That division and sort of the near surrounding divisions have 20 years of MMA experience. The lighter guys, like flyweights, have just become mainstream. And so those guys, you can see, are still in their wrestling phase of development. The women have even more recently gotten into prime time, and they're back in the Hoist Gracie stage.
Right, and you can't. I don't think you're saying that in a negative way.
No, I'm just saying that they'll go through their evolution where there'll be girls that are great strikers or great wrestlers, for instance, like a McCann, for instance, and then it'll push people out Rousey to either adapt or disappear. Their evolution will be a lot faster because the men, those middleweights and light heavies, like the Titos and Frank Shamrocks, didn't have anyone showing them what to do. It just happened to occur, and everyone started mimicking what was successful. But people always say, what's going to be the next evolution of MMA? Well, we know that they're going to be new and exciting athletes, and this is what those new and exciting athletes are going to do. They can't be taken down, and then they strike.
I think what this conversation has led to me having the revelation that I really do, like, I usually root for the underdogs, but I really do enjoy watching the champions in the UFC fight, the current champions. I mean, I still want to see John Jones fall from grace, but I can't deny it. I love watching him fight.
Yeah, so. There's only like one champion that I really didn't like watching, and that's Demetrius Johnson.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like his style that much. But really, from like you said, from top to bottom, that's a good insight. Every single one of them, like, man, that guy has a good style.
Yep.
All right. We're going to end our show with our little question. Who is the greatest of all time? Who is the GOAT? And, shit, we could actually start expanding this, so we'll just throw it out there. I'll expand it. Normally we say Silva, GSP, or Fedor. But if you want to throw in a John Jones, if you want to throw in an Aldo, if you want to throw in a Dan Hardy, be my guest. So, who is the best ever at LARPing? LARPing is live-action role-playing. They dress up in their little wizard outfits with their little duct-tape swords, and if they hit you on the arm, then you lose an arm. If they hit you on your leg, you lose a leg. They have little cards, like, what is it? What's it? Vampire the Masquerade? Pull out little cards. Here's my spell. You're hypnotized. So who would be the best at LARPing?
Oh my God! When it was just normal sports like ice skating and stuff. I've got an idea for the next show for this particular category. LARPing. Now I just want to stick to the three that we've been with because I think that's shorter and quicker and. Because Chael Sonnen would be the pound-for-pound best LARPer, but
I think Dustin Haslett looks like a D&D nerd to me.
Dustin Haslett does LARP. I think that's a fact. Actually, I think him and
Joe Lozon, him and Joe Lozon, LARPers.
And Aoki. I think Aoki would make a phenomenal LARPer. He'd actually would take your arm with him, though.
He would dress up as Dumbledore at the LARP parties.
All right, so Fedor, Anderson Silva, and GSP LARPing. I'm going to go greatest LARPer of those three has to be GSP.
Why?
Has to be. First of all, he doesn't look like your he looks like your guy that's going to go to the club and get the ladies and everything. But I think, as he said in his recent little thing with Nick Diaz, you know nothing about my dark side. His dark side is he's a badass LARPer, and I think
he goes into the LARP parties dressed up like a orc from Mordor.
So I don't think Fedor can touch him because you know what? I think Fedor at this point is still trying to get. I don't even think they have color TV in Russia. He doesn't know what LARPing is, and then. Anderson Silva doesn't have time to LARP. Anderson Silva's a boss. So I'm going GSP because of the dark side LARPing.
I'm going for Anderson Silva for two reasons. Whenever you ask him who he's going to fight, are you going to fight Chris Weidman? What's he say? He takes on a persona. No, I'm not fight Chris Weidman. He is not good for me. See? So he's good at acting. Mm-hmm. Number two, he's the only UFC fighter I've seen show up to a fight with a mask on. Remember when he fought Vitor?
Yes.
He's already got the gear. He's ready to go.
I can see that. So neither of us Fedor at all.
No.
Why would you say why would you rule out Fedor and GSP?
Well, GSP I think would make like a good, I don't know, Twilight vampire.
Okay.
Because could you see him like glittering and like him with his little French Canadian voice?
And I could see him being psychotically fast, which is how those little vampires are.
Yeah, like he's just playing baseball.
Yep.
And that movie's so stupid. But Fedor, I think like if you were to go up to Fedor and be like, "Hello, dwarf, have thee come from thine mountains?" Niet.
He would just lick ice cream cones in your face.
I'm also pretty sure Russian Orthodox Christianity would condemn all LARPers to hell.
Well, there you go. LARPing.
LARPing. When I sent the notes over for the show, Mitchell was like, Rob, what's LARPing? I didn't want to tell him.
So I didn't know until we just started this conversation.
I have family that LARPs, I'm not going to lie.
Oh, so I guess out of the two of us, you were the best LARPer.
Oh, I would kick your ass in LARPing.
I
You know what's funny? Random story, and then we'll end the show. I moved into my dad's old house that he owned in Stillwater when I was in college, and my brother had lived there before, and I found some of his LARP weapons. They're called boffer weapons. It's like PVC pipe with foam, and then you duct tape it on, and it looks like a sword or an axe or whatever. So me and my stupid buddies go out into the front yard and start doing Conan, with these boffer weapons. And we don't have any gear or protection. We're just whacking each other in the face. I will say this. I fought a guy who was who led our high school team in takedowns as a wrestler. I think 124. He clearly would kick my ass in a real fight. And then I also fought a black guy. These are my two best friends, and he is 5'8", 210 pounds of sheer solid muscle. Just complete freak athlete, been lifting weights his whole life. Does not use the sauce. Just to throw that out there. When we fought, you would think little old Rob would be like the biggest underdog. I whooped their asses every single time. I am Darth Maul.
You LARPed the shit out of those guys.
Well, we weren't actually like live-action role-playing. We were like live-action whacking. That sounds bad.
You whacked your friends off, huh?
Yeah, I was the best whacker you'd ever seen.
I bet the black guy was a more difficult opponent. Am I right or am I
Actually,
right?
he was easy because whacking him, he's such a large target. It was easy to whack him.
And we have gone off the deep end.
Shall we talk about Kim Winslow's striptease again? I'd like to whack her.
Do you think her nipples are in the right spot? I don't. That's wrong.
I think if you squeeze her nipples, they spit out dust. On that note, I am Lucky Rob. That is Mitchell Stuckey. Be sure to check out all of his writing on whatculture.com. If you need therapy after listening to this show, write into us, and maybe we'll try to figure out some sort of Obamacare discount for our listeners. You have any final thoughts? Please, nothing about nipples.
No, I think we've gotten all the dark caverns of our brains emptied here. I'm good.
I have bad news. We have another Cage Chat start next week. Who knows where we'll go with that show. And then after that, of course, the most anticipated fight of 2013, GSP versus Diaz. I think that's it. I think we're good, and we'll see you next time.